Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaudavani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane Om Apavitra Pavitro Va Sarva Avastangato Piva Yak Smarit Pundarika Akshang Sabhatya Abhyantara Shuchihi Sri Vishnu Sri Vishnu Sri Vishnu Om Ajnana Timarandhasya Jnana Anjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militang Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Mukang Karoti Vachalang Pangong Langhayate Girim Yat Kripatamahang Vande Sri Gurung Dinataranam Yat Kripatamahang Vande Parama Ananda Madhavam Trinadapi Sunichena Taror Ivasahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Hare Nama Hare Nama Hare Nama Eva Kevalam Kalau Nastyeva 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 Gatir Anyata Tatra Kirtayato Vipra Viprarshe Bhuri Tejasa Ahang Chajagamang Tatra Nivashtastad Anugrahat Sohang Basravayisyami Yataditang Yatamatahi Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we finished a section. So today we start a new section, a new Leela. This Leela is entitled Shalva. So in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there are chapter summaries for these 3 chapters which entail this Shalva Leela. We're in the 10th canto, chapters 76, 77, and 78. And here are the chapter summaries. Chapter 76 relates how the demon Shalva acquired a huge and terrifying airship, how Shalva used it to attack the Vrishnis in Dwaraka, and how Lord Prajuna was taken from the battlefield during the fighting which ensued. Shalva was one of the kings who had been defeated at the time of Rukmini Devi's marriage. Having vowed that he would rid the earth of all the Yadavas, Shalva began worshipping Lord Shiva every day by eating only a palmful of dust. After a year had passed, Shiva appeared before Shalva and asked him to choose a benediction. Shalva begged for a flying machine which could go anywhere and that would strike terror into the hearts of demigods, demons, and humans alike. Lord Shiva granted this request and had Mayadanava construct for Shalva a flying iron city named Saubha. Shalva took this vehicle to Dwaraka, where he and his huge army laid siege to the city of Dwaraka. From his airplane, Shalva bombarded Dwaraka with tree trunks, boulders, and other missiles. And Shalva produced a mighty whirlwind that obscured everything with dust. When Pradyumna, Satyaki, and the other Yadu heroes saw the plight of Dwaraka and her residents, they went out to do battle with Shalva's forces. The best of warriors, Pradyumna, with his divine weapons, destroyed all of Shalva's illusory magic, and Pradyumna also bewildered Shalva himself. Thus Shalva's airplane began wandering aimlessly on the earth, in the sky, and on the tops of mountains. But just then, a follower of Shalva, who was named Dyuman, struck Pradyumna on the chest with his club, whereupon Pradyumna's chariot driver, thinking his master to be seriously injured, carried Pradyumna from the battlefield. But Pradyumna quickly regained consciousness and sharply criticized his chariot driver for taking him away from the battlefield. Chapter 77 describes how Lord Sri Krishna disposed of Shalva, who is the master of deception, and ultimately destroyed his airship, Saubha. Having been removed from the battlefield, Pradyumna was extremely ashamed, and so Pradyumna ordered his chariot driver to take his chariot once again into the presence of Dyuman. And as Pradyumna fought with Dyuman, other Yadu heroes like Gada, Satyaki, and Samba began to create havoc among Shalva's army. The battle continued in this way for 27 days and nights. When Lord Krishna returned to Dwaraka, Krishna found it under siege, and at once Krishna ordered Daruka to drive him onto the battlefield. Suddenly, Shalva noticed Krishna and threw his spear at Krishna's chariot driver. But Krishna shattered the weapon into hundreds of pieces and pierced Shalva and his Saubha vehicle with numerous arrows. Shalva responded by shooting an arrow which struck Krishna's left arm. Amazingly, Krishna dropped his Sharanga bow that he was holding in his left hand. The demigods who were watching the battle cried out in alarm upon seeing the bow fall, while Shalva took the opportunity to insult Krishna. Lord Krishna then struck Shalva with his club, but the demon, vomiting blood, then disappeared. A moment later, a strange, mysterious man came before Lord Krishna, and after offering obeisances to Krishna, introduced himself as a messenger from Mother Devaki. This mysterious man informed Krishna that his father, Vasudeva, had been kidnapped by Shalva. Upon hearing this, Lord Krishna seemed to lament just like an ordinary man. Shalva then led forward someone who looked just like Vasudeva, then decapitated him and took the head with him into his Saubha airship. Lord Sri Krishna, however, could understand that these were simply the magic tricks of Shalva. Then Krishna pierced Shalva with a shower of arrows and struck the Salva vehicle with his club, demolishing it. Then Shalva descended from his airplane, rushing towards Lord Krishna to attack him. But Krishna took up his Sudarshan disc and severed Shalva's head from his body. And with the killing of Shalva, the demigods in the sky played kettle drums in jubilation. Then another demon named Dantavakra took a vow to avenge the death of his friend Shalva. Chapter 78 relates how Lord Krishna killed Dantavakra and another demon, Vidurata, then visited Vrindavan, and then returned to Dwaraka. Intent upon avenging the death of his friend Shalva, Dantavakra appeared on the battlefield with club in hand. Lord Krishna took up his own club and came before Dantavakra. Dantavakra then insulted Krishna with harsh words, striking Krishna a terrific blow on his head. But without budging in the slightest, Lord Krishna bludgeoned Dantavakra's chest and shattered his heart. Dantavakra had a brother named Vidurata, and he became distraught at Dantavakra's death. Taking up his sword, Vidurata confronted Krishna, but Krishna cut off Vidurata's head with his Sudarshana disc. Lastly, Lord Krishna finally visited Vrindavan and stayed there for 2 months and then returned to Dwarka. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So now that we have heard the chapter summaries, now it is time for the details of each of these chapters. This first episode is entitled, Shalva Pleases Lord Shiva. While Shukadeva Goswami was narrating various activities of Lord Krishna in playing the role of an ordinary human being, Shukadeva also narrated the history of the battle between the dynasty of Yadu and a demon by the name Shalva, who had managed to possess a wonderful airship named Saubha. King Shalva was a great friend of Shishupal, and when Shishupal went to marry Rukmini, Shalva was one of the members of the bridegroom's party. In the fight between the soldiers of the Yadu dynasty and the kings of the opposite side, Shalva was defeated by the soldiers of the Yadu dynasty. But despite defeat, Shalva made a promise before all the kings that in the future he would rid the entire world of all the members of the Yadu dynasty. Since his defeat in the fight during the marriage of Rukmini, Shalva had maintained within himself an unforgettable envy of Lord Krishna. But Shalva was in fact a fool, because Shalva had promised to kill Krishna. Usually such foolish demons take shelter of a demigod like Lord Shiva in order to execute their ulterior plans. And so, in order to get strength, Shalva took refuge at the lotus feet of Lord Shiva. Shalva underwent a severe type of austerity, during which he would eat no more than a handful of ashes every day. The husband of Parvati, Lord Shiva, is generally very merciful, and Shiva is very quickly satisfied if someone undertakes severe austerities to please him. Thus, one of Lord Shiva's names is Ashutosh, one who is easily satisfied, but also one who is easily angered. So after continued austerities by Shalva for 1 whole year, Lord Shiva became pleased with Shalva and asked him to beg for the fulfillment of his desire. Shalva begged from Lord Shiva the gift of an airplane which would be so strong that it could not be destroyed by any demigod, demon, human being, Gandharva, or Naga, or even by any Rakshasa. Moreover, Shalva desired that the airplane be able to fly anywhere and everywhere Shalva would like to pilot it. And specifically, he wanted this airplane to be very dangerous and fearful to the dynasty of the Yadus. Lord Shiva immediately agreed to give Shalva the benediction he asked, and Shalva then took help from the demon Maya Danava to manufacture this iron airplane, which was so strong and formidable that no one could crash it. It was a very big machine, almost like a big city, and it could fly so high and at such a great speed that it was almost impossible to see it. So there was no question of attacking it. It appeared to be almost covered with darkness, yet the pilot could fly it anywhere and everywhere. Having acquired such a wonderful airplane, Shalva flew it to the city of Dwaraka because his main purpose in obtaining the airplane was to attack the city of the Yadus, towards whom Shalva maintained a constant feeling of animosity. Shalva worshipped Lord Shiva, who is famous as Ashutosha, one who is quickly satisfied. And yet, Lord Shiva did not come to Shalva for an entire year because Lord Shiva, being also Bhagavan, a great all-knowing personality, Shiva understood that any benediction given to Lord Krishna's enemy would be fruitless. Still, as stated by the words Sharanam Agatam, Shalva had come to Lord Shiva for shelter, and thus to maintain the standard principle that a worshipper receives a benediction, Lord Shiva offered his blessings to Shalva. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Next episode is entitled Shalva Attacks Dwaraka. Shalva thus attacked the city of Dwaraka from the sky, and Shalva also surrounded Dwaraka with a large number of infantry. The soldiers on the surface attacked the beautiful spots of the city. They began to destroy the nice parks, the city gates, the palaces, and the skyscraper houses, the high walls around the city, and the beautiful spots where people would gather for recreation. While the soldiers attacked on the surface, the airplane began to drop big slabs of stone, tree trunks, thunderbolts, poisonous snakes, and many other dangerous things. Shalva also managed to create such a strong whirlwind within the city that all of Dwaraka became dark because of the dust which covered the sky. The airplane occupied by Shalva put the entire city of Dwaraka into distress, equal to that caused on the earth long, long ago by the disturbing activities of Tripura Asura. The inhabitants of Dwarakapuri became so harassed that they were not peaceful for even a moment. The great heroes of Dwaraka city, headed by commanders such as Pradyumna, counterattacked the soldiers and airplane of Shalva. When he saw the extreme distress of the citizens, Pradyumna immediately arranged his soldiers and personally got up on a chariot, encouraging the citizens, assuring safety. Following Pradyumna's command, many warriors like Satyaki, Charudeshna, and Samba, all of whom were younger brothers of Pradyumna, as well as Akrura, Kritavarma, Bhanuvinda, Gada, Shuka, and Sarana, all came out of the city to fight with Shalva. All of them were Maharathis, great warriors, able to fight against thousands of men. All were fully equipped with necessary weapons and assisted by hundreds and thousands of chariot drivers, elephants, horses, and infantry soldiers. Fierce fighting began between the two parties, exactly as formerly carried on between the demigods and demons. The fighting was severe, and whoever observed the fierce nature of the fight felt one's bodily hairs stand on end. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The next episode is entitled, Dyuman Defeats Pradyumna. Pradyumna immediately counteracted the mystic demonstration occasioned by the airplane of Shalva, the king of Salbha. By the mystic power of the airplane, Shalva had created a darkness as dense as night. But all of a sudden, Pradyumna appeared like the rising sun. As with the rising of the sun, the darkness of night is immediately dissipated. So with the appearance of Pradyumna, the power exhibited by Shalva became null and void. Each of Pradyumna's arrows had a golden feather at the end, and the shaft was fitted with a sharp iron head. By releasing 25 such arrows, Pradyumna severely injured Shalva's commander-in-chief. Pradyumna then released another 100 arrows toward the body of Shalva. After this, Pradyumna pierced each and every soldier by releasing another arrow. Pradyumna killed the chariot drivers by firing 10 arrows at each one of them. And Pradyumna killed the carriers, like the horses and elephants, with the release of 3 arrows directed towards each one. When everyone present on the battlefield saw this wonderful feat of Pradyumna, the great fighters on both sides praised Pradyumna's acts of chivalry. But still, the airplane occupied by Shalva was very mysterious. For it was so extraordinary that sometimes many airplanes would appear to be in the sky. And sometimes there are apparently no airplanes. Sometimes the airplane was visible, and at other times not visible. And so the warriors of the Yadu dynasty were puzzled about the whereabouts of this peculiar airplane. Sometimes they would see the airplane on the ground, sometimes flying in the sky, sometimes resting on the peak of a hill, and sometimes floating on the water. The wonderful airplane flew in the sky like a whirling firebrand, for it was not steady even for a moment. But despite the mysterious maneuvering of the airplane, the commanders and soldiers of the Yadu dynasty would immediately rush towards Shalva wherever he was present with his airplane and soldiers. The arrows released by the dynasty of the Yadus were as brilliant as the sun and as dangerous as the tongues of serpents. All the soldiers fighting on behalf of Shalva soon became distressed by the incessant release of arrows upon them by the heroes of the Yadu dynasty, and Shalva himself became unconscious from the attack of these arrows. The soldiers fighting on behalf of Shalva were also very strong, and the release of their arrows also harassed the heroes of the Yadu dynasty. But still, the Yadus were so strong and determined that they did not move from their strategic positions. The heroes of the Yadu dynasty were determined either to die on the battlefield or gain victory. They were confident that if they died in the fighting, they would attain a heavenly planet, and if they would come out victorious, they would enjoy the earth. The name of Shalva's commander-in-chief was Duman. Duman was very powerful, and although bitten by 25 of Pradyumna's arrows, Duman suddenly attacked Pradyumna with his fierce club, striking Pradyumna so strongly that Pradyumna became unconscious. Immediately, there was a roaring, "Whoa! Now Pradyumna is dead! Now Pradyumna is dead!" The force of the club on the chest of Pradyumna was very severe, and it appeared as though Pradyumna's chest had been torn asunder. Pradyumna's chariot was being driven by the son of Daruka. According to Vedic military principles, the chariot driver and the hero on the chariot must cooperate during the fighting. As such, because it was the duty of the chariot driver to take care of the hero on the chariot during the dangerous and precarious fighting, Daruka's son removed Pradyumna from the battlefield. 2 hours later, in a quiet place, Pradyumna regained consciousness. And when Pradyumna saw that he was in a place other than the battlefield, Pradyumna addressed the driver and condemned him. "Oh, you have done the most abominable act. Why have you removed me from the battlefield? My dear chariot driver, I have never heard that any of our family members was ever removed from the battlefield. None of them left the battlefield while fighting. And by this removal, you have overburdened me with great defamation. It will be said that I left the battlefield while fighting was still going on. My dear chariot driver, I must accuse you. You are a coward. You are an emasculator. Now tell me, how can I go before my uncle Balaram and my father Krishna? What shall I say before them? Now everyone will talk about me and say that I have fled from the fighting. And if they inquire from me about this, what will be my reply? My sisters-in-law will play jokes upon me with sarcastic words. Oh, my dear hero, how have you become such a coward? How have you become a eunuch? How have you become so low in the eyes of the fighters who opposed you? I think, my dear chariot driver, that you have committed a great offense by removing me from the battlefield. The chariot driver of Pradyumna then replied, My dear sir, I wish a long life for you, and I think that I did nothing wrong. For it is the duty of the chariot driver to help the fighter in the chariot when he is in a precarious condition. My dear sir, you are completely competent in the battlefield, but still it is the duty of the chariot driver and the warrior to protect each other in a precarious condition. I was completely aware of the regulative principles of fighting, and I did my duty. Try to understand. The enemy all of a sudden struck you with his club so severely, you lost consciousness. So you were in a dangerous position, surrounded by your enemies. Therefore, I was obliged to act as I did. Actually, Lord Pradyumna has a Sachid Ananda body, an eternal spiritual form that can never be wounded by mundane weapons. Dwaraka's son, however, was a great devotee of Pradyumna, and so out of intense love, he feared for the safety of his master, and thus removed Pradyumna from the battlefield. So we will continue this episode next week. Now we will sing the prayers to Lord Nrsinga. Namaste Narasinghaya Praklada Klada Dayane Hiranya Kashipur Vaksha Shilatangana Kalae Ito Nrsinga Parato Nrsinho Yato Yato Yamitato Nrsinha Bahir Nrsingo Hridaye Nrsinho Nrsingham Adim Sharanang Prapadye Tavakara Kamala Vare Nakam Adbhuta Sringam Dalita Hiranya Kashipu Tanu Bringam Keshavadrita Narahadi Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadish Jaya Jagadish Jaya Jagadisha Hare Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Om Tat Sat.